You know, Anthony, it is not the smartest nor the strongest of the species that survives. It is the one that is most responsive to change. Charles Darwin said that.
Great, Jay, but I think we're referring to the evolution of the verb.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Hall with Ride Detroit. This week, we're talking about evolution. I'm kind of disappointed because I've been studying human evolution because I thought that was what the video was about. But it is about the evolution of the Verve Plus. This is one of our favorite bikes. You've heard in past videos because we use this bike in our rental fleet. So it does have a special place in our heart. However, we were really surprised when we started to look up sort of the differences between the original Verve Plus and the Verve Plus 3, which we didn't even know. The cool thing about making these videos, I will say, full disclosure, is a lot of times we learn as much as you guys learn. It is my job to know a lot of this stuff, but a lot of times I concentrate more on the experience and how it interrelates with a person. I don't get too much into the technical stuff, but on this one, we are going to talk a little bit about technical stuff. So when we're talking about the Verve Plus, I guarantee you when they started out and got into this, it was really one of those things like the market was coming up pretty quick on, the Americans, and we were trying to figure out how to get our foothold in it. And Trek came up with the Verve Plus. Great bike. If you look at the geometry, it's really more of a stagger. When we talk about the differences. So all of these bikes are going to come in two options. They're going to come in a step-over version and a step-through version. But if you look at the first Verve Plus, really the geometry on that is more of what we call a stagger. It's not a full step-through and it doesn't have that full swoop, but it does give you a little bit of a down arc so that you can get your leg over a little bit easier. I kind of find it to be kind of weirdly pointless. I'll be honest about the stagger. Like, it's almost just as high as a standard bar. So I don't really get the concept of that, but somebody can break that down for me, I'm sure, which is kind of one of the reasons we're going to talk about this bike as well. So we'll talk about the Verve. They really came out with nice size tires. You've got the H5s on there, so you've got a nice size tire that's going to be comfortable. It's got the rear rack on it. I mean, they had all the ideas of making this sort of what we call a 2 to 3 day commuter. Okay, so if you're riding around 2 or 3 days a week, it's got all the stuff you need. All three models are going to come equipped with fenders, light kits, and what's really cool is they all have the ISO suspension post as well for the seat. So that's another cool thing that sort of all three of them have. Now, if we can start talking about kind of a few of the differences. One of the major differences is the internal battery. First off, you're going to look at that and you're going to see on the 1 and the 2, they've got the outer battery. With the 3, they've really streamlined it and put it on the inside. So therefore, you don't need to worry about when you're pulling your leg over, hitting it on a battery or something like that. And it just makes it easier because now you don't need a lot of tools to remove that battery. So that is one of the huge differences. Another one of the huge differences is they went from the Bosch Active line to the Bosch Active Line Plus. So what that does for you, you still get that same 250 watt battery, but now you're going from 40 Newton meters to 50 Newton meters. And even though that seems minimal, but what that does is, and we were talking about this, is this really moves this bike up sort of a level. Prior to this video, we talked about why would they keep the Verve 2 and keep the Verve 3 in the roster sort of confusing people. But at the same time, when you start to talk about the differences and what you gain with the 3, we see completely why they would keep the Verve 2 in the line. In my opinion, the Verve 2 is once again that 2 to 3 day, that's that person that rides, they want to be on a fitness upright. Well, now that you're talking about the 3, you're moving up to the 50 Newton meters, so you're getting a little more torque. You're also moving up from a 400 watt battery to a 500 watt battery, so that gives you a little more longevity. And one of the coolest things that we didn't know is that and I'm embarrassed to even say this, is this has the option for range boost. So what Trek offers with range boost is the ability to add a second battery to double your range. So you cannot do that with the Verve 1 and the Verve 2. So if you step up into the Verve 3, we often talk about price points. You're looking at maybe $400 or $500 difference, but that's where that difference is. And those differences actually are really huge because now you're going from spending a day out to really spending a worry-free day if you wanted to add that second battery and push your longevity. And before I go on, I got to give Anthony total credit for this, all right? I thought, so we talked about earlier how the Verve 1 was more of a stagger, okay? And then with the Verve 2, they definitely moved to a true step through. And with the 3, they even continued to go even deeper with that step through and make it even easier. But then you'll see this little piece right here. Now, I thought it was to add structural stuff, structural integrity to the frame. And let's just go with it. That probably is the truth. But I think a much cooler story would be is if somebody at Trek said, wouldn't it be cool if we gave people a way to carry this thing? So we use that as a way to transport the bike throughout the shop and move it around, is it fits perfectly in your hand and it brings it up to the perfect height to carry it around. So once again, let's just go with the cooler story that we have a guy named Johnson who comes up with all these amazing ideas. I'm just gonna say Johnson was sitting at the end of the table and he said, hey guys, I think it'd be cooler if we added a carrying bar. And somebody said, give Johnson a raise. The stem here, how on the older Verve, it had the adjustability, but this one comes with spacers. So with the older one, you really had the ability to kind of go up and down, but now they give you even more range on the up and down, and you can move it forward. Another thing is, I think they made a great decision in adding a much nicer light kit and an easier light kit to replace. If you look at the Verve 1, it's really integrated into the frame. With this one, if something were to happen to your light, we could literally just pop that thing off and give you a new one. Everything else, pretty much the same, pretty much standard. You've got the Purion controller. Once again, we did talk about the ISO and the seat. Another thing I really appreciate they did is Trek is evolving with their tires. Okay, so when this first came out, they weren't making a tire at that time that was e-bike specific. So now we have the E6 that is an e-bike specific tire that they've added to this bike. Once again, it's got less knobs on it, so it's gonna give you easier rolling resistance and give you the ability to get that further, faster that we're talking about with all the additions to this bike. So there you have it, everybody. That is the evolution of the Verve Plus, all right? I love this bike. Once again, if you have any questions about it, make sure you stop by your local shop and ask them, go for a test ride. We can talk all day about how cool this bike is, but you're never gonna get over the hump unless you give it a try, all right? Thanks for tuning in to the e-bike experience. I'm Jason Hall with Ride Detroit.